Most people work hard, earn their salary, and save it in the bank like the bank is their friend. But let me tell you a secret. The system doesn't want you to know. The bank is not your friend. It's an investor, and you are its investment. You put your money there, they lend that same money to someone else at high interest and give you back peanuts in returns. It's like having a chicken that lays golden eggs, but instead of keeping the eggs, you give them all to your neighbor and ask for just a little piece of the shell back. Does that make sense? Of course not. If you want to play the game of the rich, you need to think like the rich. Rich people don't save money, they put money to work. Investment funds, treasury bonds, safe investments that yield more than inflation. That's the basics. That's the beginning of the game. If you're still saving money under your mattress or in a savings account, congratulations, you're just playing poor with responsibility. Let me ask you a simple question. You have 24 hours in your day, right? Now, if you work 8 hours a day and sleep 8 hours a night, tell me, what are you doing with the other 8? Most people will answer, resting, watching series, spending time with family, and that's okay. But while you're resting, some people are building an empire. Listen carefully. Rich people don't have more time than you. They just have more intention with the time they do have. Starting a side business nowadays is easier than ever. You can sell a digital product, teach online, create content, do affiliate marketing, open an online store, offer a service. And you know what's even crazier? You can start without quitting your job. I always say, work full-time at your job, but part-time on your fortune. The difference between those who live the life they want and those who live the life they can afford is that the first chose to build an asset. While the average employee thinks about salary, the entrepreneur thinks about cash flow. Is your job important? Of course, but it's your foundation. Your business is your trampoline. And don't tell me you don't have time. That's just an excuse from someone who prefers the comfort zone instead of facing freedom. Freedom has a price, but financial slavery also has one, and it's much higher. You want to get rich? Great. But tell me, have you learned the language money speaks? Because let me tell you something they never taught you in school. Money is a language, just like English, Spanish, or Mandarin. And if you don't speak its language, it runs away from you. Most people spend their whole lives speaking salary, installments, financing, while the rich speak assets, dividends, leverage, passive income. So, which vocabulary are you using? Let me give you a simple example. The average person earns money, then spends it. Then they work more to earn more and spend more. The smart investor earns money, buys an asset. That asset generates more money. They reinvest it. And eventually the money works harder than they do. That's speaking the language of money. And you don't learn this just by reading books. You learn it by doing, starting small, replacing fear with courage. Money isn't the villain, ignorance is. You know what I did when I realized I was financially illiterate? I went to study. I started listening to people who knew what they were talking about. And most importantly, I stopped taking advice from people who were just as broke as I was. Hear this, if your dad is poor, that's okay. But if your mentor is poor too, then we have a problem. If you want to learn how to swim, you don't study with someone who almost drowned. You go to someone who swims like a shark. The language of money isn't hard, it's just different. And if you want different results, you need to learn to think differently. Waking up early, facing traffic, working 8, 10, 12 hours a day, coming home tired, getting your paycheck, paying bills, waiting for the next month, and repeating. Is this what they call a stable life? I'm sorry, but that's not stability. That's a prison with a fixed salary. The middle class was trained to work for money, while the rich are trained to make money work for them. You'll never get rich trading time for money because your time is limited and money is unlimited. Want an example? The average worker spends an entire month to earn 3,000 reais. The entrepreneur who understands assets can earn that while sleeping. The difference, the first sells time, the second builds income streams. Now understand this, it's not your fault. School taught you to be an employee, not an investor. You learned how to make a resume, not how to build a business. You learned how to look for a job, not how to create opportunities. And the system loves that, because the more you depend on a paycheck, the more afraid you are to take risks. Afraid to ask for a raise, afraid to change, afraid to invest. And fear keeps you stuck in the same place. You know what fear does? It disguises slavery as security. Now answer me. Do you want to stay in this cycle, or do you want to break out of it? Because breaking out requires one thing: financial education. And let me tell you, true freedom is not about how much you earn. It's about how much you understand money. If you learn how to build assets, if you learn how to invest, if you stop selling your time and start buying your freedom, then yes, my friend, you begin to truly live. And living with freedom is infinitely better than living with so-called stability. This next sentence will annoy a lot of people, but it needs to be said. The house you live in is not an asset. Calm down, breathe. I'll explain. A true asset is something that puts money into your pocket. Your house takes money out of your pocket. Property taxes, condo fees, maintenance, electricity, water, financing interest, insurance, repairs. That's a liability. But we were taught to believe that owning a home is the ultimate symbol of financial success. A comfortable lie. You know why? Because it keeps you in debt for 30 years. And worse, it ties you down to one place. You lose mobility. You lose opportunities. Have you heard people say, "I can't move to another city. I have my house here." And then they spend their lives where they don't want to be, doing what they don't like, just because they have a financed roof over their heads. Now listen, having a place to live is important. But what gives you freedom isn't the house. It's the income that pays for any house. Want to live well? Then build assets that cover the rent of any place you choose. Rental properties? Now that can be an asset. Owning 5 apartments that generate $15,000 per month. That gives you power. But having a beautiful home drowning in debt with no cash flow? That only gives you appearances. And let me remind you, real wealth isn't what you show to others. It's what you quietly sustain, month after month, with the freedom to choose. So next time someone tells you a house is the best investment, is it making you money or just draining it? That'll show you the difference between people who live for appearances and those who live for real. Let's be real. Traditional education was never designed to make you rich. It was built to turn you into an obedient employee. Since childhood, what do they teach us? Get good grades, go to a good college, find a good job. That's not financial education. That's financial domestication. It's like they put you in an invisible cage where you can only see one path. Work, pay bills, retire, and die. School doesn't teach about taxes. It doesn't teach compound interest. It doesn't teach you how to start a business. Why? Because that would give you too much power. They don't want you to think like an owner. They want you to think like an employee, and there's nothing wrong with being an employee, but the problem is believing that's the only path. You become an adult, start earning money, and then they push car financing, credit cards, installment, plans, payroll loans, and you feel proud because now you're an adult. But you became a debt-ridden and controlled adult. Is that freedom? The system profits from your ignorance. If you don't understand money, you'll work your whole life for someone who does. You'll pay interest to the bank. You'll pay taxes without knowing why. You'll invest poorly. You'll depend on government retirement. And you know what's cruel? When you try to break out of the box, the system mocks you. Oh, investing is risky. Starting a business, that's not for everyone. Just keep your head down, be grateful for your job, and don't complain. That's fear. Fear of you waking up, because once you wake up, you stop being just a number. You start thinking, questioning, growing, and the system doesn't know what to do with free people. So let me ask you, do you want to be just another number on a tax ID, or a name that built your own freedom? The choice is yours. But if you keep playing by the system's rules, don't complain about the outcome. School taught you to follow rules. Now it's time to learn how they work, so you can break them intelligently. Have you ever seen a hamster running on a wheel, running, and going nowhere? That's the life of 90% of people. I call it the rat race. You wake up early, face traffic, work all day, come home tired, and at the end of the month, you're broke again. And the worst part, you think you're living normally, that this is what being an adult is, that this is the right way. But the truth is, you're stuck in a system designed to drain your time, your energy, and your creativity. All for what? To pay bills. Most people don't live. They survive on autopilot. Wake up, work, pay, sleep, repeat. And when they get a raise, they get a new car, upgrade their phone, book a trip on credit. In other words, they earn more, but spend more. Result: still trapped in the rat race, because freedom has nothing to do with how much you earn. It has everything to do with how you use what you earn. So let me ask you a simple question. Do you work for money, or does your money work for you? Because as long as you're trading time for money, you're not free, and the most twisted part, the system rewards you for it. It gives you an invisible trophy, Employee of the Month. Congrats on the promotion, but no one tells you that all you got was a longer rope to hang yourself with, more hours, more responsibilities, more pressure, and less freedom. Now, how do you get out of the rat race? First, you need to understand that there's another game. The game of assets, the game of passive income, the game of building wealth. It's the game where money works while you live. It's where you build something that pays you even while you sleep. But that game isn't taught in school. It requires you to unlearn a lot of things, to stop trying to look rich, and start acting like the truly wealthy. The rich don't chase money. They create systems that make money chase them. So let me ask you again, are you going to stay on that wheel, running without going anywhere? Or will you step off and start building your true freedom? Because at the end of the day, the rat race only ends when you decide to stop being a rat. When people ask me, Robert, why do you talk so much about financial freedom? My answer is simple, because most people are living a lie called security. Society taught us that the right path is to study hard, get good grades, land a stable job, climb the career ladder, pay off a house over 30 years, and one day retire. That's what I call a prison disguised as stability. Security for most people means having a paycheck every month. But let's be clear, that's not real security, that's dependency. You're betting your life on your boss continuing to pay you, the economy staying stable, and the government funding your retirement. And if any of those fall apart, your entire security collapses. Now freedom. Freedom is a different game. Freedom means having assets that put money in your pocket month after month without having to trade your time for it. It means being able to say no when something doesn't make sense. It means being able to travel when you want, live where you want, work if you want, and do what you love, not just what pays the bills. Freedom is what few pursue because it requires courage, sacrifice, and mindset. You can't be free if you keep thinking like someone who's chasing security. When I decided to leave my job and start my path as an investor, a lot of people called me crazy. They said I was throwing away my stability. But today, while many are worried about inflation, recession, layoffs, I keep growing. Why? Because I don't rely on a salary. Because I chose freedom. So think seriously. Do you really want freedom? Or do you just want to feel safe, even if you're trapped? Because those two paths don't cross. Security is comfortable, but limited. Freedom is challenging, but limitless. If You want to change your life? The first step is to stop chasing security and start building your financial freedom through education, assets, and vision. Security is for those who fear. Freedom is for those who choose to win. A lot of people grew up hearing that debt is a bad thing. Avoid debt. Don't buy what you can't afford. Debt is a sign of failure. And you know what I say? That's only half the truth. What they taught you is the mindset of someone trapped in the game of the poor and middle class. Because the wealthy, the true investors, use debt to get richer. There's good debt and bad debt. And those who don't understand the difference end up working their whole lives to pay interest instead of earning interest. Bad debt is the kind that takes money out of your pocket. It's the car loan for a vehicle that depreciates, the credit card maxed out on purchases that generate no return, the loan to pay for vacations, parties, vanity. All of that makes you poorer, traps you, and turns you into a slave of the system. Now, good debt is one of the secrets of the rich. It's the kind of debt you take on to invest in assets that put more money in your pocket than the cost of the debt. Let me give you a real example. When I buy a property with the bank's money and use that property to generate income, either by renting or selling for a profit, it's the tenant who pays the debt for me. I use other people's money to build wealth. That's financial intelligence. But be careful. Using good debt requires financial education, planning, and discipline. It doesn't mean going out and taking loans thinking everything will work out. The problem is not debt. The problem is ignorance. Banks love people who are afraid of debt because those people spend their lives paying interest. But banks also respect those who know how to use their money to generate wealth. I'm one of those people. And if you want to escape the rat race, you need to start thinking like an investor, not like a consumer. Are you going to keep taking on debt just to look rich? Or are you going to learn how to use debt to actually become rich? That decision is what separates those who struggle all their lives from those who achieve financial freedom. Look, this is something no one likes to hear, but I'll say it anyway. Most people weren't educated, they were trained. And yes, there's a big difference between education and training. Training is what you give to a dog. You repeat, obey, get a treat. In school, it's pretty much the same. Do what you're told, follow the rules, don't question, pass the test, and that's it. You're now qualified to enter the job market and obey again. School teaches you to follow predefined paths. But who defines those paths? The ones who control the game, the ones who build companies, create laws, create systems, and put you inside them. Now tell me, how many years of school taught you how to manage money, to generate passive income, to understand compound interest, to use credit as a tool and not a trap? Exactly. They taught you to work for money, but never to make money work for you. So let me ask you a simple and brutal question. Are you learning to think, or are you just repeating what they taught you? Wealthy people, and I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about mindset learned through experience. They make mistakes, learn, correct, test, and invest in themselves. They don't wait for someone to validate what they know. They act. You don't need permission to change your life. You need awareness. You need the courage to question everything you were told, to think outside the box, to build your own game. Because those who wait too long end up playing on the team of the obedient. Those who think differently build wealth and freedom. So once again, are you being educated or domesticated? The answer might hurt, but it might also set you free. If this made you think, if any part of it bothered you, good. It means you're starting to wake up. Now pay attention. Don't keep this to yourself. There are people out there living the same cycle, repeating the same routine, not knowing there's another way to live. So do this, like this video, and share it with someone who urgently needs to flip the switch in their life, because sometimes all a person needs is new information, a new starting point. Those who want to change, start now. Those who wait stay stuck, waiting for luck. See you in the next video.